Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description, in every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description and in every episode description. I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say I'm watching so-and-so show, and then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it, and that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic, one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. One mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 2, Episode 5 of Showtime's Yellowjackets, entitled Two Truths and a Lie. First of all, I want to apologize for getting this one out late. You know, Fridays are kind of... I have a lot of obstacles to getting videos done on Fridays, and this past Friday, the obstacles were obstacling really, really hard. So, and then it's really difficult for me to get videos done on the weekend. So that's why we're here late. I'm making this a pretty painful day for myself. I've got to record Yellowjackets, Succession, and Barry all today. So no rest for the weary. So the title of this episode is based on the game that Walter and Misty play on the way to find Natalie. I'm a bit baffled at the choice of highlighting something that in the moment felt pretty minor, highlighting it by making it the title, which, look, I mean, maybe that's a clue that it's not minor, but like that's what it felt like. And even now that the episode's over, it even kind of feels like that wasn't that important or that relevant. In this scene, Walter doesn't play the game correctly, and he gives three truths. He mentions having a goat cheese farm, Barry Manilow potentially being his father, and having $175,000 in Taco Bell stock. I can't imagine this show would give us information that seems irrelevant and then name the episode after that scene. So there must be some relevance to that information. I don't know what it is. They could maybe be clues as to how he can afford to do a lot of the stuff he's doing, playing full-time detective and doing all these elaborate schemes in old folks' homes. I don't know, but even if the relevance of that scene comes to light later in the season, and it's great info, it doesn't make the experience of watching that scene in that moment feel any more interesting. I was about to say any less interesting. No, it was pretty uninteresting at the time. You know, if I find out that it was useful information later, it doesn't change the experience that I had while watching in the moment. It was kind of like, okay. But overall, you know, I mean, I thought this was actually a pretty mediocre episode. You know, I continue to have the same issues I've had with this season so far. I don't think the Misty Walter stuff is any good at all. The Natalie Lottie stuff is dragging, although that plot line did give us some give us a pretty big moment at the end of the episode. But it just seems like every episode, there's a moment where I'm just like, I don't understand why you did it that way. Like, there's just a lot of things that are kind of coming up. And like the Misty Walter road trip thing, like, I don't know. I just found Misty was so compelling, and I just feel like she's just been dragged down by, not necessarily by Elijah Wood or the Walter character, but by this entire story. Like, she's done jack shit all season. And man, anyway, I'm not gonna harp on it. But I want to talk about what I just said about how I don't understand why they place scenes a certain way. I want to give an example of that. So last week's wilderness plotline ended with Javi being found, right? Pretty big deal, right? Why the fuck wasn't that the first wilderness scene in this episode? Like, why wasn't that first wilderness scene everybody badgering Javi with questions? Like, where the fuck were you at? Like, when we first hit the wilderness in this episode, mostly everybody is sitting at Lottie's stupid circle time, and Travis included. And they're just sitting there listening to the wind, and I'm like, why is this show pretending like the last episode didn't end with Javi returning? Like, everyone's just sitting there calmly talking about, oh, I hear my breath. And I'm like, the last thing I saw was Javi returning. What the fuck is this? Like, even if weeks have passed since Javi's return, and everyone's already accustomed to him not talking and have kind of moved on, so that's why they can sit there and do Lottie's circle time calmly. That's not what it feels like for me as the viewer. It's been a whole week since I saw the last episode, and I was still immediately like, wait, what the fuck happened with Javi? Where's Javi? Why isn't Javi at the circle? What's going on? Can you imagine you're binging this and you immediately go from the previous episode to this one? Like the last episode ends with Javi returning, and then the next, you hit play on the next episode, and the first time you get back to the wilderness, they're all sitting around in a circle pretending like the shit didn't fucking happen. Like that, like those are the kind of things that I keep saying, like hold some shows back from being the great shows like a Succession or something like that. Because that just felt, it just felt like a weird unforced error to where like immediately I'm just kind of like pulled out of it. Like, wait, what's going on here? Like, I don't need to be thrown for a loop like this. And of course, you know, a lot of times shows jump around timelines and shit like that. This show obviously does it all the time. But like, it just felt clunky. And you know, it might have even been the next wilderness scene. We find out right after that Javi hasn't been talking. And I just feel like that wasn't the best order for those scenes. Have the Javi scene first. Like, even if you don't want to really draw attention to it, you could be like, you know, have a throw in a line where he's just sitting there and them same two girls whisper to each other, oh, it's been 2 weeks since he's been back and he hasn't spoken. Now, boom, now you do the same scene with Lottie's circle. I'm no longer wondering why they're not badgering Javi. I'm like, oh, it's been 2 weeks. He ain't talked anyway, so they've moved on. But, and it's done. It's simple. All you got to do is swap the two scenes. But because they didn't do that, like, I came into that first scene, like, wait, what the, like, I'm like, where's Javi even at? Like, what, my immediate thought was Javi, and that's with a week off. If you binge this, you're like, wait, you're really gonna be like, what the fuck is going on? So, like, I know that feels like I'm, like, harping really hard on something that's not that relevant, but again, like, if something happens that makes me go, hey, wait a minute, this isn't lining, like, you're taking me out of the show now. Now I'm not engrossed in what's happening. And that seems small, it seems like I'm nitpicking and I'm poking on something that's not that big of a deal, but the truly elite shows, that kind of shit doesn't happen. So, like, I don't know, man. It's there's a number of things that I've found concerning that, I don't know, it's just really affected my ability to enjoy not enjoy the season, because I am enjoying the season, but as much as season one. Like, as it pertains to this season so far, I continue to find the Taissa stuff to be compelling, and I found the Shauna stuff to be compelling as well so far. But even that took a turn this week. So it's like, I don't know, man. I'm a little discouraged, a little concerned. I just find myself not as into this season as I was the first one, and I'm not really sure why, aside from the things that I'm going to continue to point out. But, you know, like the weird scene structure, I had the same issue with the how they put together the Jackie Shauna thing. You know, that stuff, the stuff that I'm going to talk about with Shauna this week, the stuff that I've been saying with the Misty Walter and the Natalie stuff. Yeah, I don't know. All of these things are way less interesting than everything that was happening in season one. Like, nothing that's happening this season is as interesting as anything that happened in season one, except for kind of Taissa, and that's because Taissa's on the same fucking storyline. So, like, that's really it. Well, so is Shauna. But, so, speaking of Shauna, let's start there. Present day, Callie's out on a date with Kevin's partner, and already another complaint. I really don't like how the show has minimized how fucking gross this looks. Like, and is. Everything about Callie and Kevin's partner is very fucking cringe to me, and I have a pretty high tolerance for watching cringy shit, because I'm just like, again, this ain't real, so like, fuck it, whatever. But like, she's only 17, which granted is nearly a legal adult, but she's still in high school. Meanwhile, Kevin's partner's mustache makes him look like he's 35 fucking years old, a 35-year-old sexual fucking deviant. And the show seems not only unconcerned with how off-putting that just is visually, but I'd say they'd seem unconcerned altogether if it wasn't for the fact that Jeff said something in this episode. And it felt to me like Jeff was like the audience. And it's weird because it makes you realize that they are aware of this, but they're doing it anyway. And I don't know. I just feel like you don't have like. I know how nitpicky this seems, but like I feel like they actually made Kevin's partner look even older, and I don't understand why that was necessary. Like you could have just I feel like you could have done this without the fucking pedophilia fucking vibes that I'm getting off here. Like I wish I hadn't said getting off, but like I feel like you could have done this. That, again, just not give him the mustache, maybe look like he's 23, 24, and then I'm like, okay, it's wrong, but like, whatever, I don't feel like it's creepy. But like, with his fucking mustache and him looking 35 fucking years old, and she looks every bit of 17, like, I don't know, man, it just doesn't, I don't know why they're so cavalier about this, with having this 17-year-old, fucking around with a guy who looks like he smokes 17 cigarettes a day and makes his cousin uncomfortable at the family reunion. And then like they're like having her like trick him into kissing him and shit. I'm like, this is, I don't know, it just felt really inappropriate to me. And I hate that I'm saying that because again, normally I don't pick at that kind of shit. But like I feel like for me to notice it, it's got to be pretty bad. So I feel like there's other people who got to be noticing like, yo, this shit ain't cool. Because like I don't even typically care about that kind of shit, and I'm noticing it anyway. While they're on the date, Callie looks at the bill, gets his real name, Googles him, and finds out he's a cop. She later does the smartest thing Callie's done in the entirety of the series and steers Kevin's partner in the wrong direction. Well, no, I'm sorry, she steers Kevin in the wrong direction. No, the partner in the wrong direction by saying that she found out that Shauna was fucking Randy. And she goes home and tells Shauna and Jeff, and Shauna is impressed with this move, as was I. And Jeff is appalled by her dating a cop, as was I. But then someone hit Shauna and the writers of this show over the head with a cast iron skillet, and Shauna says, that was such a good idea. Let's fuck it up by unnecessarily staging a charade where Shauna pretends like she's presently fucking Randy. And I don't understand what was the point of this pointless fucking scheme that just made everything worse. Like, the problem this whole time is that Kevin thinks Shauna is involved in Adam's disappearance because of the text, and then Callie telling his partner that she was having an affair, and that was enough. That combined with Adam being missing points Kevin in Shauna's direction enough as someone who might know something or know what's going on or be involved, whatever. That's the problem. If Kevin now believes that Shauna's been fucking Randy this whole time, and he has no reason to not believe that because to him and his partner, Callie would have no reason to lie because she's not onto them. So they wouldn't have any reason to believe that she would be sending them down the wrong path. So why would he need to check and make sure that they're still fucking? Like, what does that prove? Like, they're still fucking now after Adam went missing, so they must have been fucking the whole time. Like, I don't understand how you get that information and go, and one, even assume it's still happening, but two, need to go verify that in order to verify the other thing. Like, I don't, but even if I let that go, there's still a lot more problems here. So Shauna factors everything into her plan, and it's a good plan, aside from how unnecessary it is, and how she doesn't account for Randy being a fucking idiot. But since she wanted to overcomplicate the situation, she made herself vulnerable to Randy's idiocy anyway. But I mean, like, to me, this entire sequence and everything about this is a really bad scene, if I'm being honest. Like, for example, on its face, the condom thing is a good idea, but its entire purpose relies on way too many improbable things having happened before it and being true in order to make the condom charade necessary. So in order for that to be necessary, you have to assume that Kevin finding out Shauna was fucking Randy is not enough to get Kevin to drop it, which it wasn't, and that it also makes him want to follow her in order to make sure she's still fucking him. Again, we're already kind of improbable. Like, you're off to a bad start at convincing me of why this is necessary, because we're relying on a lot here. Then it also relies on them following you, seeing you go in the hotel room with Randy, seeing you were there for however long you were there, seeing you come out together, and then going, yeah, that's still not enough. Let's go inside and look for clues that they fucked. Like, okay, like, we're already at the point of this would never happen. But now, in order to get to your end goal of Kevin and his partner still being suspicious, I also have to accept the fact that this guy would pick up a used condom and fiddle around with the jizz in it to verify if it's actually sperm and not a trick. Like, again, it's entirely implausible that we even reach the point where the condom's in the trash can. But there's no way you get to, with every single hurdle that you've been met with, being met with evidence that Shauna's fucking Randy. At no point would anyone realistically see a used condom in the trash can and go, I'm still suspicious, let me check. I don't even care if I have gloves on. I'm gonna pick this up, I'm gonna fiddle around with it. Like, you would have to already think that something was amiss, like, within the condom to even start doing some shit. Like, to me, the plausibility of getting to this point is just off the charts ridiculous. And they created a scenario that is implausible on several levels just to continue to drag out, will Kevin figure this out plotline. So, like, that kind of shit, like, that's why I'm saying, like, I feel like this season is inferior to the first one, because I wasn't seeing this kind of shit in season one. But now I'm sitting here like every step of this was ridiculous. Like, this plan should have, like, the need to do this falls apart almost immediately, and this shit goes like 6-7 steps past that of implausibility to get us to the fucking condom scene. And it just like, by the time we got to that point, I'm already just like, this is completely fucking ridiculous. So moving on from there, in the wilderness, Shauna's now super pregnant. She catches Lottie whispering to her baby and is justifiably incensed, whispering while she's asleep. And Taissa kind of takes Lottie's side, which justifiably angers Shauna more, because there's no interpretation of Lottie's actions where that's okay. But Shauna and Taissa later argue some more in the woods, with Shauna continuing to make some really good points, and Taissa looking delusional regarding how she feels about Lottie and the circle and the wind listening. And I sound like I'm being insulting of this, but I don't mind the slow burn with Taissa. The slow burn being like how slowly they're having Ty come around to Lottie's shit, you know, like buying into it a little bit more. Because because of the slow burn, every time she does something that makes her look a little bit pro Lottie, it's pretty shocking for me. So, like, I kind of like that they're doing the slow burn here. It's working. You know, I actually get pissed off anytime she like tries to like do these mental gymnastics to justify her involvement in Lottie's shit. So, like, I think that's actually pretty good, even though that sounded kind of insulting. Shauna gets some belly pain, and then a blizzard comes. So, never mind. The girls struggle to make their way back to the cabin until Taissa applies her wind listening skills that Lottie taught her, and this helps them navigate back to the cabin. Now, I understand what they were trying to convey to me. I just struggle to put into words how lame the entire wind listening thing is, both conceptually and in action on the screen. Like, I hear the wind, I hear my breath. Like, I don't even know what to say. Like, it's really lame. Like, and I think this is, again, another reason why I'm kind of not liking this season as much. Like, look at the weird, lame, and boring things that have happened, the time that's been wasted, the interesting characters that have a boulder of tedium tied to their ankles. It just feels like the good moments are few and far between, and season one was great from start to finish. But anyway, the episode ends with Shauna going into labor, which inches us ever closer to solving my favorite mystery of what happened to Shauna's baby. So that's all I got for Shauna right now. Moving on to Taissa. I'm going to start my Taissa section of the video by talking about Van. The episode opens with us seeing the time leading up to when Taissa arrives at Van's store. So we see Van. She lives a very retro life. She, I'm assuming, owns the store with all sorts of retro shit like old movie posters, VHS tapes, VCRs. Apparently, she also digitizes people's personal physical media. One thing I liked is at her home, which I think is above her shop, she has one of those VHS tape rewinders that looks like a car, where you pop the hood open and you put the VHS tape in. I had one of those, and I thought it was the coolest shit ever. Well, my parents had one of those, and I thought it was the coolest shit ever. It was like a gray... it's still open in the front, but it was like a gray, like DeLorean. Actually, I don't know if it was a DeLorean or not. It might have just been a regular sports car, but it was gray. I remember that. Who cares? Anyway, there's some parallels between the present-day Taissa story and the wilderness one of this episode that I think can maybe help us predict what decisions adult Taissa might make in the future. But regardless, whether it does or not, I appreciate the parallel. So in the wilderness, we see Taissa has started Lottie's Stupid Circle meetings, started attending Lottie's Stupid Circle meetings where they listen to the wind, like I mentioned. When pressed about it, she consistently goes like, well, Van is making me do it, but it is helping me sleep better. Like, she wants the people who don't buy into Lottie's shit to think she's doing it against her will, but she's also probably pretty conflicted about the possible cause and effect nature of her going to Lottie's shit and being able to sleep better. So like, I like kind of what they're doing with Taissa, the internal struggle here, as she kind of like slowly shifts a little bit more toward Team Lottie. And just as Van helped her in the wilderness with her sleepwalking, in present day, Taissa has come to Van to presumably have her do the same thing. And it might not be in a literal sense where she expects Van to fix it. It could just be to help her mentally, just to be able to share what she's dealing with one of the few people who would be able to understand. But if you want to use the past to predict the future, it stands to reason that Van will likely be able to help Ty with her sleepwalking. But it also probably won't be via any Lottie methods, because Van didn't strike me as someone who is still doing the kind of shit that Lottie is into. But, after a couple of, I don't want to say wasted scenes, but like, I'm going to say it, wasted scenes where with Van asking Taissa why she's there and Taissa not answering, which is one of the things I hate most at all of TV and film, is when somebody asks you a question and you just don't answer. Like to me, I just feel like that is like, that's a thing that really only happens in TV and movies, which is why it pisses me off. Like, no one just asks, like, if you're trying to make a point, you will, but like, no one just like ask a question and they just stare at you and just don't say shit. Like, I'll be like, yo, what the fuck, dog? Did you hear me? Like, I'm gonna react like, did you fucking hear me talking to you? Like, what the fuck? Like, I don't understand why that happens so much. Anyway, eventually, Taissa tells Van everything, but it is mostly off screen. Taissa later discovers some oxy in Van's medicine cabinet. And side note, is that as common in real life as it is in TV and movies to just root around through someone's medicine cabinet when you use their bathroom? Like, that's some real scumbag shit to me. Like, I've never even thought to do that, but every time in a movie when someone goes to the bathroom, like, they close the door and they close the door behind themselves, like, as if to like make sure they look around, like, to make sure that they're alone, and they start looking in the medicine cabinet. I don't know. That's weird. Anyway, she confronts her about it, and Van she confronts her about it is not very specific. Taissa confronts Van about the oxy, and Van says it was her mother's, who lived with her before she was died of cancer. Later that night, Van wakes up and secretly takes her mom's oxy, but Night Taissa is there to slip her some tongue and let her know that they're not where they're supposed to be, whatever that means. So they walk off. We don't know what it means. I gotta admit, I'm very intrigued by whatever Night Taissa has planned for Van. So again, I'm cool on the Taissa stuff. In the wilderness, like I said earlier, Taissa is attending Lottie's circle meetings. Taissa and Aquila, whose name I had to look up because the show has refused to make me learn it, have an interesting conversation about both of them attending Lottie's circle. Like, Aquila shares that her and another JV player, Rachel, I think it was Rachel, had some superstitious rituals they do before they stepped on the field. And she talks about, like, the peace of mind it gave her to do that. Like, they felt like it helped even if it might not have, or even if there was evidence that it didn't. And, like I said earlier about how Ty is using Van as an excuse for going to Lottie's meetings, we see these two kind of connect over bullshitting yourself. like Aquila bullshitted herself into thinking her superstitions weren't pointless, even though they lost a lot, just like Ty is pretending Van's the reason she's going to the circle. No, you both are getting bought in, and you're both struggling to come to grips with that, so you need to make up these excuses to kind of justify it, and to make it so that you don't look like a hypocrite to the people who are doing the same shit you are. It's like, I get it, natural human thing. It's cool. I like it. Makes sense. Good stuff. Moving on to Lottie and Natalie. I'm mostly at the end here. A lot of the meat of my video is going to be Shauna and Taissa. The stuff that was flat out, this stuff was just flat out bad until the end. Just like we wasted scenes of Taissa not telling Van why she was there, we wasted scenes here too, where where Natalie's almost breaking into Lottie's office. Like, again, that felt like, okay, maybe you do it once, but they did it like twice. And then, of course, then the third time she actually does get in. Misty arrives at the compound and Natalie sends her away, which also irritated me, because even though I know that's not the end of this, it made the time I didn't enjoy with Misty and Walter feel like I didn't even need to see it in the first place. So, like, I don't know. I know Misty's not going anywhere, but I said what I said. Anyway, Natalie finally successfully gets into Lottie's office, and she blows up Lottie's spot in front of everybody regarding how she has files on all their personal business, and then they blow up Natalie's spot like, bitch, we gave it to her. I thought that was funny. Lottie convinces Natalie that she truly wants to know what happened with Travis, and that she helps Natalie channel her last experience with him. And we see that they were doing drugs together. Surprise, surprise. And Natalie ODs. And she sees a vision as she comes to of the Antler Queen. And she tells Travis that they brought the darkness back with them. Which I like that a lot, just conceptually. Like the idea, like, whatever is happening in the wilderness timeline, they brought with them to present day. I just like that conceptually. Then it also still raises a question that I don't think enough people are asking, that I wonder if the show is going to ask/answer, which is why now? Why at this point is all of this shit coming up in present day? Like, say, Night Taissa, why is this starting up for her again? All this stuff. I like to learn that. But essentially what we get from this scene at the end with Natalie here is we learn that the Natalie was right note that Travis wrote was in reference to that statement, the bringing the darkness back with them. So I think that's a big reveal. That's something we've been waiting for a long time. I like that reveal. Like I said, I like what it's telling us. I like what that means. I want to see that at play. So like all that, I'm good with all that stuff. Moving on to Misty. Is the last thing I got before my closing thoughts. In the wilderness, we see Misty continuing to befriend Crystal as they bond over Jack Kevorkian. They bond over something weirder every week. Mari talks to them with squash my theory that Crystal isn't real. And then speaking of squashing, Misty later overshares with Crystal about destroying the emergency transmitter from like season 1, episode 1. And this is understandably a little bit too much secret for Crystal. And Misty panics and unintentionally backs Crystal up to the edge of the cliff until she falls over and splats on the ground below. I think we all agree that there was probably some level of intentionality there. I mean, she said I'll kill you. I think she was maybe surprised that happened, but there was a level of intentionality there. Present day, like I said, everything involving Misty was boring and not worth talking about, aside from Walter deducing that Misty killed Adam, but nothing even comes of that. Like, she just gets out of the car and walks back to the cult place. Like, okay. Like, you remember when Adult Misty was the best part of the show? Yeah. Anyway, closing out with some thoughts. Mari makes the girls pick cards for chores again, and I'm practically certain there's going to be a connection between the cards and doing way more sinister shit. Can't wait to see how the Queen of Hearts with the scratched out eyes, how that's going to come into play. So, really looking forward to that mystery getting solved. How he doesn't talk to Travis, but when he finally does talk, he talks to Coach Ben. Why Ben? Why do you guys think he talked to Ben? I also wonder if that drawing that he took from Ben that he took right before he spoke was the underground tunnels that I theorized about last week, with the symbol being like essentially like location entry point markers. I feel like I'm doing a lot with that, but anyway, he says that she told him not to come back and that she's his friend. That Javi says this. I kind of assume this is the Antler Queen, but does anyone have any alternate theories about who the she is? I don't know. So Crystal says her real name is Kristen and then dies moments later. If her having a different name doesn't become relevant, this might be the aspect of the season that pisses me off the most. Like, I was already pissed about how they nonchalantly pushed invisible characters to the forefront in a scenario where I shouldn't be seeing new faces. But you're going to highlight this one girl just to kill her off before she's proven herself to be relevant beyond being Misty's friend, and then all we learn about her is that she has a different name. Like, I don't think, like, there's got to be more here, but if there isn't. And to be clear, I have pretty strong faith we're not done with Crystal yet, but like I said, I just pointing that out. And then lastly, Randy jerking off looked incredibly painful. Women, if you've never seen a guy jerk off or you never watched a porn, it's not like whatever he was doing. Whatever he was doing looked like he was trying to, like, I don't know, rip the skin off of his entire body dick first. That's kind of what that looked like. That's not it. So that's all I got for this week. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who are like, fuck you, I love that episode. Sorry, again, I'm not obligated to sit here and say that every episode of a show that I like is great. If I think there's an episode that's mid, I'm going to say so. So that's what I think. You can shit on me in the comments, and I'll see you guys not next week, later this week for episode 6. And until then, peace.